right, welcome everybody to the mid-year financial presentation. This will be a moderately dramatic, no, not very dramatic at all. We'll be talking about the finances from July 1st until December 31st. That's the 6-month mark for our budget. The first presentation will be from Susan, our board president, and she'll give us sort of the state of the church. Then I'll do a very brief presentation and have questions from all of you, and then Reverend Brand will finish things out. So we'll start with Susan Smith.
Good morning. Good morning. How's that? We are now more than halfway through our church fiscal year. I'd like to give you a brief overview of the life of the congregation, the work of your board of trustees, and then share my thoughts. In July, the board welcomed new members at our board training. We began our common read, Mistakes and Miracles, and a study book by our board consultant, the Reverend Dan Hotchkiss, called Governance and Ministry. We first began addressing our housing needs for visiting ministers and talked about the possibility of creating a residential suite on the second floor of Winslow House. The board approved a parental leave for Reverend Jessica. We approved a contract brought to us by the Building Maintenance Committee with Valley Restoration to paint and restore our beautiful church steeple, work that will begin this spring. At our board retreat in August, we set 2 primary goals for 2021-2022. Number 1, plan and conduct a capital campaign to build on our social justice legacy. This goal includes fundraising and project planning. Number 2, widen our circle of welcome by creating a diverse, inclusive, and welcoming, beloved community. Reverend Jessica will talk to us about forming a coalition of all our social action groups to dream and plan how to implement the 8th principle. This goal might include reviewing our bylaws and policies to ensure that they do not foster any form of oppression, and offering training like Beloved Conversations and conflict management. At the August board meeting, we revisited the COVID policy. We reiterated the need for the COVID task force to adapt to this rapidly changing pandemic and to keep the congregation informed of each new decision through articles in the Angle. We first approached the necessity of improving our tech capacity. We broke out into 2 working groups aligned with our board goals. One group discussed project planning around the capital campaign. The other group worked on 2 objectives. Number 1, conduct an anti-racism audit of our bylaws and policies. And number 2, offer leadership training and or Jubilee anti-racism training from the UUA. In September, we launched the church year at In-Gathering with in-person worship, the windows and doors open. We purchased a Remy Halo air purifier, which attached to our HVAC system in the sanctuary. About 25 volunteers donated their labor and needed items to reconfigure the space at Winslow House, moving staff offices and furnishing the residential suite. I met individually with many congregants, church leaders, and members to share the board's fiscal year 22-23 capital campaign vision document. The board approved a contract with Secure Networks to analyze the internet hardware and the security needs at First Parish. In October, on a perfectly warm and sunny Saturday, we held Eats and Beats Fall Picnic, planned and executed by our fabulous fundraising committee, and attended by about 90 multi-generational folks who enjoyed delicious barbecue and music from the sound dunes. It was a lovely, successful community event. Later that month, we chose an architect and an engineering firm. We had a preliminary meeting in the parish room with the principals of these two firms, Patrick Guthrie and John Bologna. The tech team did more research around the needed upgrades to our network and security systems. We turned our attention to resupplying the Winslow House kitchen and creating outdoor seating areas, a COVID-era necessity. In November, the capital campaign continued to be guided by the voices of the congregation in the surveys that were done and the report of the Facilities Task Force. Susan Flaws and I took on the roles of co-chair of the capital campaign. The board hired Reverend Bran Lennox as our parental leave minister for 4 months, from mid-January to mid-May. They will choose to utilize the residential suite in Winslow House, parochial housing in UUA parlance. In December, the capital campaign was announced from the pulpit, and a copy of the board's fiscal year 22-23 vision document was handed out in the order of service. We opened a separate bank account to start receiving donations before the end of the year, especially for tax purposes. We continued to interview possible campaign consultants. We were urged to take each step in this process slowly, which we are doing. With Jessica's encouragement, Carol Yerby and I met with all the social justice groups to better communicate with each other, consolidate contact information, and not silo our efforts. And then Jessica's world fell apart on December 23rd. As she lost her beloved daughter, Penelope. Anne Clay, after only 5 days of precious life. Our world came crashing down too. A group of staff and lay leaders quickly changed our Christmas Eve service, and then 3 days later held a candlelight vigil honoring Penelope and her short life. We were served and held by visiting minister Reverend D.L. Helfer during this challenging time. In January, we were well supported by the UUA, including their trauma response team, who have counseled us to slow it all down, to move forward at a pace that feels doable during this fraught time. In addition, many UU ministers from across the country and our own strong lay leaders have offered support as we navigated rapidly changing circumstances, staff shortages, COVID, the terrible strain on our youth and families, and our collective grief. Reverend Bran arrived on January 8th, and they have settled in nicely. I have heard many congregants express to me how grateful they are to have them with us. Also in January, Susan Flaws and I chose the consultant we wish to hire for our capital campaign, which will be named Widening Our Circle. Barry Finkelstein, with Stewardship for Us, is affiliated with the UUA and has deep experience guiding UU congregations like ours through successful capital campaigns. He will facilitate a Next Steps weekend, which we have scheduled in May. Also in January, the board voted to grant Reverend Jessica bereavement leave in lieu of parental leave, with her return to us to remain in the middle of May. So here we are in February. COVID numbers are coming down. The days are getting longer, and there seems to be light ahead. Karina and I, along with many volunteers, are working on getting the Winslow House living room refurbished, including a new coat of paint. The old furniture has been replaced by new, chosen by Jessica before she left. The tech task force pushes ahead, discerning the best way to hybridize the Winslow House living room for video conferencing, combining the benefits of live and virtual interaction to widen the circle in our meetings. A new improved network system is also coming soon, all needed upgrades on both sides of the street, which will be funded by the generosity of our wonderful endowment board. During this challenging time, our community has experienced trauma and grief. It is buoying to me to hear of so many instances of assistance and care offered by our members. The Right Relations team has held listening circles, the caring team reaches out to any individual in need, and the staff remains available for pastoral care. We have in place an executive team in Reverend Jessica's absence and a trauma response team to address, as best we can, the current needs of First Parish. Our staff continues to do an extraordinary job of working without the direct supervision that they are used to in these very stressful times. They deserve our deep appreciation. It seems to me that grief and challenge have pulled us together as a church community. I listened to the stories from other New England region UU presidents at our quarterly gatherings, and I have so much pride for the tender care and hard work I see right here. I have much gratitude for the efforts of so many leaders who circle round and continue to reach out to keep this community growing and thriving. Thank you.
Susan, thank you for providing us extraordinary leadership in these disorienting times. Thank you. All right. So some of you may have read the material in the Angle, and many or most of you may have not. So that's what we'll review today. It'll be about a 5-minute review of information. And then the heart of it will be your questions, your comments, the things that you're most interested in exploring. Overall, we're pleased with both the income and the expenses midway through the fiscal year. We're halfway through the year, so we'd expect the expenses to be about half spent, the income to be about halfway in, and the expenses are less than half. The income is more than half, so both of those metrics are great. What's going well? Current year pledges are $213,143 out of a total budget of $364,117, or 58% of budget. Pledge total is higher than the budget of $372,909. The thrift store, $57,045, is 71% of budget. Phenomenal. It's very gratifying and hopefully more than make up for the shortfalls in other income categories. The expenses, overall expenses, staff salaries, benefits, professional expenses, buildings and grounds, office, denominational dues, committees, CYM music, and worship are all individually and collectively below the aggregate total, below budget. The areas of concern: Fundraising. A small fundraising team has worked hard, very hard, to implement Eats and Beats and the holiday fair, and the two events and other small group fundraising have raised $7,880 out of a budgeted $10,000. Yeah. The biggest fundraiser of the year is our spring auction, which is budgeted for $10,000. The fundraising team would benefit from additional volunteers who can bring new energy, ideas, and leadership to the group. So that is just an area of need. If you have some capacity, some interest, some energy, and want to join the fundraising team, that's something that could be, that's needed. And I do want to mention that the Welcoming Congregation does the gala ball. They wanted not to be in the budget. They asked not to be in the budget. I put them in the budget for $2,000, so it should not be seen as any kind of lack that they did not do a gala ball this year and they did not contribute to the budget. So that, that was our doing, not theirs. The offertory is below, it's at 36% of the budget. We hope the congregants will become more and more comfortable coming to service on Sunday, and that will pick up in the remainder of the year. And then, not specifically a financial issue, we're concerned about volunteer fatigue. A small number of people are comfortable participating, but many people are not. But those who are beginning to show signs of burnout or tiring. We hope there's folks in the congregation who have the ability to join any one of a number of groups who are helping to keep the congregation vibrant. A comprehensive list of FPBUU committees and task force will be published in the quarterly angle, and you'll see some areas where they're looking for folks to join in. So that's my prepared remarks. If you want to ask a question, you'll see that normally our financial report is 10 pages long. It's been reduced to a one-page summary because not everyone likes the expansive. They think it's painful, not expansive. So we got the one-page version. If you want to refer to a line item, before you ask your question, please name the line item that you're referring to, and just pause a moment so everybody can get on the same line with you. Great. I wanted to mention that, and that would be it. We're open to answering. Before, I want to introduce members. Members of the Finance Committee, whether they've been serving 30 days like Bob Motterstock, or 30 years like Susan Flaws, or everything in between, Raj Smith, Karen Whitting, Gail Webb, myself as treasurer, we serve with pride and joy, and it's really been a pleasure to serve you all and be part of the leadership of the church. Thank you. Oh, and of course, Karina's steady, wide embrace helps us keep an even keel day in and day out. So if you have a question, you can ask it, I'll repeat it, and then one of us will answer it as best we can.
Okay, that's great.
I didn't want you to not have anything to respond to. So I'm just curious, line 120 on this sheet is worship, and it looks like we're considerably less than 50% spent at 50% of the time through the year. So I'm just curious, what accounts for that? Is it an over budgeting, or are we using less?
So the question is,
money,
line 120, worship, is well under 50%, and why is that? Some line items are so steady, like salary, it's like clockwork, it's always the same, and others, like snow removal, will be really high, and then in the summer, none. So worship is kind of more sporadic. I don't have an exact reason why worship is where it's at, but it's more of the more sporadic one. So, go ahead. Take the mic.
So I'm trying to remember the subcategories under there, but I think one of the reasons is because we're not having, oh, thank you. We're not having what we usually do over there. So we don't have coffee expenses and other kinds of expenses like that.
No guest ministers.
And we haven't had guest ministers. Yeah. Lately we haven't, but we would expect to have some coming up in the spring, so it might make up.
Do you think it's going to end the year under?
I'm not projecting it. Got a hand over there.
I think one of the big expenses is guest ministers, when Jessica usually takes her one Sunday off, but for this period of time, that Sunday off I'm covering between the different services, the way it's worked out this year, so.
Twigs is commenting that normally we hire a guest minister to cover the fourth Sunday when Jessica is off, but Twinks is covering as part of her normal salary, so that's a savings. Karina's comment is that she does not expect it to end the year below because there's other times where we will be making worship expense. Any other comments about that line item? Okay, next question.
It was a very thorough.
We appreciate it.
Great. Maureen?
This is just a comment and sort of a question. On number 14, the food certificate sale, seems to me it's one of the easiest ways to give to the church. It's totally painless, and so I'm wondering why we're not doing better with that and how we could, make it better known that we, that this is a great way to give to the church.
Maureen's comment is that the food certificates, line 14, are way down, and it's an easy way to give to the church. It's painless. People are spending money at the grocery store anyway. What's a way that we could enhance that line item? It's at 21% of what we'd normally expect. So that's a good comment. Karina's comment is that that's a factor of attendance. Pat?
We were just talking on the stewardship committee. Tavia is going to have an announcement made next couple of Sundays because people aren't coming in the parish room because there's no coffee. And people tend to leave right after. So there's going to be a reminder that food certificates are for sale, the coffee, and there are still a few things going on in there. It's worth a visit.
So an announcement from the pulpit.
Yeah.
Great. Marcia?
So, it's all about routine too, that if you get into the routine of buying them and using them at the grocery store, which I'm guilty of not using them sometimes, but it really is a good routine to get into, and it's so simple, like what's been said, 5% is 5%, and it comes back to us. So it is a matter of getting used to it, and even during COVID, I did it a couple times, I just dropped the check off at the Winslow House in the box beside the door, and then I was told that my certificates were there to pick them up. So I was able to continue to do it once in a while. I wasn't real good about it, but it is a matter of just getting used to doing it, and it helps. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but whatever. I am in the choir.
Marcia's mentioning that she's made arrangements with Cove to pick up her certificates at the office. So that's another way of doing it.
Perhaps people also need to be reminded, like myself, when I remember to buy food cards, I do it online, I use a credit card, but I also give an extra contribution to cover the credit card fees, because if you don't, there's really no point in doing it, because you suck up most of that $5.
So you can do it as a convenience buying online, but it's helpful to make an extra contribution to cover the credit card fees. Good. Liz?
Also, just for those, many of us have started using
Liz has the question of can you use the cards for grocery deliveries? I know that you can because you can enter the card number, and if Tavia mentions that from the pulpit when she does her announcement. Okay?
Line item 4, is the inventory figures, are those inclusive of the split plate, or is that just what comes to?
It's half of the collection.
I know that, but these figures here, the 7,295 through December, is that net to the budget?
Yes, that's net to the budget. That's the part we keep. I didn't know that. Karina was whispering in my ear. Exactly. Thank you. Okay. Maureen.
So, in advance of this, I thought we would have made more money from offertory because I give more money when I do it on my app because I don't want to be embarrassed by, putting $1 in or something. So I thought that would be the case, but maybe people don't know how to download the app or use the app, and I just think that would be really helpful because it's so easy.
Maureen's suggesting that it might be a good time to have an update or reminder on how to use the app or use the how to text to give.
Or a tutorial, perhaps.
Have a tutorial on text to give. Okay, good comment. Yes?
But again, I've never done text to give. I don't know, you hook that up to your checking savings, or can you hook it to a credit card? Either. And again, if you're hooking it to a credit card, you're making the entire contribution.
The questions would be answered in a tutorial, so that's another argument for Maureen's suggestion, because I don't want to answer it right now, but it sounds like we need a tutorial. Good. Okay.
When you text to give, we are not charged for that like when you use a credit card via the website.
Question?
Could always do good old-fashioned snail mail.
A suggestion to use snail mail. I forgot all about that. Okay. Questions? Other questions, comments? Ten seconds. Liz.
I just want to lift up the volunteer fatigue concern. I know it's not specifically financial, but we are seeing that in the CYM realm, where we have sort of, and I'm sure it's happening in other realms too, where we have sort of the same group of volunteers that keep showing up, and they are amazing and so awesome, but they are tired. And so I just really want to lift up that concern, and that if anyone has bandwidth to start showing up, please, because we need our volunteers. That is really the lifeblood that keeps so much of this church running, and we need you. We need our people. And I know, again, I'm preaching to choir, but because the people who are showing up here are also people who are showing up elsewhere, but, call your friends.
So a special plea for volunteers for the CYM program and everywhere, but a special plea in the CYM committee and as volunteers in the program. Reverend Brand.
I want to express appreciation for the people who have brought their volunteer fatigue forward to me, and also address that during the stewardship month. I'm going to be working with the members of various committees in need to put a spotlight in the weekly angle on just some of the basic tasks that volunteers would do, so they know what to expect if they were to sign up for this committee that needs extra life.
Great. So when they put the information in the angle, it'll specify what's involved, and if you want to get involved, what kind of commitment would be expected. So that's being concrete about it should be very helpful. Okay. Pat.
I just have a comment that this feels really good. Sitting here with people I haven't actually talked to for a while, and the pillars of the church, and listening to the finance. It's like old times.
It's good to be together.
Yeah.
We say it, we mean it. Yes, Marcia?
Put it together. It takes work to do it.
So with that, perhaps some remarks from Reverend Brand.
Well, I'm going to keep it pretty short because, I'm trying to be mindful of what is my job and what's not my job. But I do want to reflect to you all that the warmth and welcome I have experienced here is extraordinary. I cannot emphasize enough what a blessing you are to each other. And to see the life and vivaciousness in this community during a time at the end of 2 years, in the middle of a pandemic, right? After 2 years into an unknowably long pandemic, after the personal events that have rocked everybody's world here, to see the strength and the life and the interest and the participation is just incredible. So sometimes when we're working on making that life happen, we can feel the burden of it and we can start to feel discouraged. And having been around a little bit in congregations, on the East Coast and West Coast, you're doing an amazing job. So. I should ask if anybody has questions for me before I go.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I will keep up the good work. Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to add a comment. It's good that Reverend Brand is warm and inviting, and if we didn't have that kind of a minister, we wouldn't feel comfortable in going to you and saying, I missed you, or I didn't say goodbye to you, or something like that.
Yeah. After the first week, someone came to me and said, "Can we keep her?" Excuse me. Can we keep them? Pardon? Yeah, a very welcome leave minister. We're all blessed. So we have blue skies and sunshine. We have each other. Go in peace. John, thank you.